What's going on, everybody, man? Welcome back to another episode of the Underrated and Overlooked podcast. Hope everybody had a good week and a good weekend as well. But Craig, how you feeling today?
Feeling good. So, how was your weekend other than the spring game?
It's very busy, but it was good. I was able to see some great players. Yeah, it was good. It was a good weekend. Definitely a busy one for me, but well worth it. You know what I'm saying? I got this weekend to kind of get back, get a little bit of rest, and chill out. But it was good. How about you?
Yeah, no, those spring games were very exciting. I know Graham went to the Bama one. You obviously were at the Tech one.
Yep.
I think the Tech one was an important one just to see because last year so many new pieces, but this year really starting to see it come together.
Yes, you are, and they're loaded, and I think you'll actually be excited on some of the stuff that was out there and kind of what happened.
How much media? I saw Bacon Network, they were there.
Yeah, he was there. Me, obviously, I work with Jackson, but it was not a lot. It's actually a
Interesting.
whole bunch at UGA. It was probably max 8 or 9 media members.
Wow.
Yeah, so Georgia gets the pill. Georgia gets a lot of it, and Fox 5 was at Georgia. Like pretty much everybody was at Georgia.
Well, you filled that void, so I'm excited to talk about it because I saw some highlights, but obviously you were right there for it.
Yes, sir. So we're gonna get into that later. But yeah, let's start the show off. Another major guy from Georgia. This is the third linebacker. We're obviously gonna talk about it with Max a little bit later. But Jaden Harmon officially committed Sunday to Alabama. What's your thoughts, Craig? You've gotten to see him up close and personal a lot of times. What's your thoughts on that for them?
I think with Jaden, you can confidently say there were plenty of times last season where he looked like the best player on the field. They played some outstanding opponents. We were there for the Carrollton game. We're there for the Langston Hughes matchup, and he just had this ability to make a special play to get them back in the game. If you look at Rome last year, the previous season, obviously he was one of the few underclassmen on a really senior-led team last year. Uh, he made those special game-changing plays that really provided the momentum. He proved he can cover in the passing game. He's got a ton of speed, and he can work very well sideline to sideline. He's physical, and I think it's a great pickup.
Yeah, I think so too. And obviously, Kalen DeBoer and his linebacker staff is doing a great job of recruiting here in the state. Also got Luke Metz that is committed to Bama, Daryl Duke Johnson, and now you add Jaden Harmon. But yeah, I think he's one of the best sideline guys. Also can cover very well, and could do a lot of the different things you need on the defensive side of the ball. Versatility, be able to come down and rush the passer, and things like that. I think he's a big time effective of the game.
Yeah, and so what's going to be important for him at that linebacker position? Is he going to play outside or in the middle? He'll probably play outside because he's fast enough. I think he can match up with tight ends. He can jam them. He's got enough size. So he's really not missing any part of his game. He's physical. I think what you said, though, at Alabama, that's going to be a deep linebacking core.
Yes.
He's going to have to be patient, but there's no doubt that if he keeps working at it, his opportunity will come, and I think it's just about making those special plays. He is going to have a ton of confidence. He's got so many games under his belt, and I think it'll be really interesting to see him this season. He's going to lose some help in that secondary behind him. The Rome defensive line is always incredible. They do a great job of playing textbook up front, allowing him to do his thing. So he's going to work with some new pieces, but there's no doubt he'll be the leader of that defense this season, and he's one of the greatest to come through that Rome program.
Yes, he is, and it seems like every year they got some kind of talent coming out at the defensive, either linebacker position, the safety position with Joe Wilkinson, or defensive line, Stephon Green, or Justin Terrell. They always got some guys. So shout out to him, man. Very, very special what he's doing, and I'm sure it's going to be interesting to watch. But we'll keep it rolling. I don't think there were any other major commitments, Craig. Correct me if I'm wrong. If you saw anything, let me know. But I think that was one of the major ones from this past weekend. I know right now, actually, we could talk about a little bit is actually the open period. So Rusty did a really good job of actually talking about this, and we can actually pull it up. But this is an important period right now for 25 guys, especially here in the state. I'm not sure if you've seen it, Craig.
Before you get into this, I saw a funny tweet yesterday. I thought it was kind of funny, but Cambridge's new coach, Tyler Jones, the former Walton offensive coordinator, he put a tweet out and he said, "Hey, college coaches, stop by Milton and then on your way to Cambridge, because obviously they're close, but it's funny to see him kind of shilling for Milton
Yeah, that is kind
after
of funny.
just having that heartbreaker loss to them. But looks like he's very settled in. But he's like, yeah, coaches, if you're going to Milton, we're right next door.
Yeah, just stop right on by.
So, yeah,
Come see our guys. Yeah.
so he's definitely turned the page.
Yes, he has. Love to see that. But here's the big news. Great point out there by Craig. But obviously, Rusty tweeted this out, I thought, and also put it on his Instagram. But say contact period Monday, April 15th through Saturday, May 25th. So during this period, coaches are allowed to visit your school campus exclusively. Coaches may engage in conversation with prospective students entering their senior years, 2025s, but not with students in the 26, 27, or 28, etc. So campus visits are good. Official visits for 25s, calls to 25s, text messages to 25s, and mail.
Interesting. So yeah, they'll. Okay, so that's through May 25th. So yeah, we'll see a bunch. Like once these spring practices actually start up, yeah, these coaches will be very, very busy going around the state. Um, I think the spring scrimmages will be slightly after that May 25th, but you'll get good opportunity early on in spring just to see, hey, how much size did they put on? How they've been handling the off season. If there's a guy that's been on the radar, you'll really get to see him up close and personal. And this is a key window because this is the start of their journey for their senior season, starting right at spring ball.
Yes, exactly. So important period, and obviously 26, 27 is no contact. But yeah, like you said, it's a great chance for these players to bring these coaches on for their spring games that are actually going to be the next couple of weeks, Craig, and be able to kind of show what they can do, and then some of these guys can leave with offers potentially, or start building that rapport kind of with those coaches, and being able to kind of see those campuses and things like that.
Yep, I think this is also important. We always look at the coaches. It's important to get their eyes on Georgia, but I think for players to know how to strike that conversation with the college coach, ask them what they're looking for, what they see in their potential at the program, like realistic goals. Like if you're a linebacker, as we just talked with Jaden, obviously Alabama's going to have no shortage of talent. So they have a new staff as well. So it's an opportunity for Jaden, if they get that official visit, to come in, ask those questions. What does he need to work on this season? What are they looking for? So yeah, it's important for the players as well as the college programs.
No doubt about it. And then Craig, before we obviously talk about spring games, did you see any major coaching changes this past week? I tried to scour through, but I didn't see anything significant. But what's the latest you're hearing there?
Yeah, we always try to update it. I have not seen any this particular week.
Okay.
Looks like Windsor Forest is still open, and then Josie. I have not seen those get filled. But yeah, two or three might still be open, and obviously with spring practice rolling around, they will have to fill those quickly.
Yeah, I was gonna tell you too that I had seen that. I know Spalding was right. We talked about it last week on the show, right around the corner from hiring theirs, but nothing official yet.
Right.
But yeah, it was expected it was supposed to be last week, but nothing there, guys, as far as the news there. But yeah, I didn't see anything crazy. But like you said, Craig, the spring practices and the games are here, so obviously now is the great time to go ahead and get the guy so you can get that going.
Yes, and we've been covering these head coaching changes, and it's hard to keep tabs on it. But we are also going to see a lot of movement with these assistant coaches, and as soon as the spring semester is over, and potential coordinators following their coaches. Coach Rowland talked about it at Camden County, trying to fill some special spots on their staff, and we've also seen, I'd say, a dozen of these coaches that, as these programs continue to grow, as they take that next step up on the coaching ladder, they're introducing new positions to their staff, whether it's an extra weight training coach, an extra guy to handle recruiting or handle the nutrition program. So we'll see. A lot of the head coaches have settled, but it's still going to be very active with assistants, and obviously that's a key part in all this.
No doubt about it. So we'll keep you guys obviously locked and loaded there. If we see anything, we'll talk about it. Probably run a story on it and on scoretl.com, or we'll talk about it on the show.
Yep. And then one more thing I'll talk about on my show tomorrow. There were about 35 teams that were missing a full 10-game schedule. Walton was actually one of them. They filled theirs. So we're going to look at that, just some of the final games that have been added to the schedule.
Okay. Where did you see that, Craig? Pull that up, actually.
Let's see real quick. It was on the Georgia High School Football Daily last week. Let me find it right here. It is on April 12th. If you go to their Twitter.
Okay, one sec, guys.
There it is.
All right, perfect. And let's share screen. All
right. So with this list right there, you see Effingham County. It's obviously alphabetical order. That's Coach John Ford. He commented below there. They've fixed that one. But there's still, as you see, some of those teams, Walker, they're competing a full season again. They still need to pick up 3 games. Manchester, only 7 games. So definitely an important time for them. We'll check in. I'll have an update tomorrow with an official list.
All right, there you go. As you see, a lot of notable teams on here. South Effingham at 9, New Manchester at 9,
and then
Mount Bethel only at 1.
Remember them at Media Day last year. They introduced a football program for the first time last year, but they only played JV. So I think this is their first time with the varsity schedule. It won't be in a region. They're Class A Division II, but it will be interesting to see. Are they going to pack it with just GIA teams? How are they going to challenge themselves out the gates? So they obviously have the most games to fill, but you also got Tri-Cities on there. Villa Rica, they just recently hired their new coach, so should be interesting.
Yes, it should. Great point out here by Craig, just to be able to see some of these schools that, obviously are trying to find, their games. And then, like you said, Mount Bethel Christian, we found out last year, first time, having a football program. So a lot of changes, but as Craig says, he's going to keep you guys updated, and he's going to have it on the show tomorrow with the latest updates on that.
Yep, and a team on there that I think is going to have a big year, New Manchester, new head coach, and they started to really show out last year. They were obviously battling with the Jonesboroughs, the Mundy's Mills, and they were very competitive.
Yes, they were. All right, Craig, so that's going to transition us to our last topic on the high school realms. Most exciting spring football games coming up. Which ones have caught your eye so far, Craig?
For high school?
Yes, sir.
I really like the Noonan and Sandy Creek one. And there's so much history with those programs, with Coach Walker, his dad starting the Sandy Creek program, him leading them to state titles. And I think if you go back and look at the interview with Coach Walker, this Noonan program, 3 years after that tornado destroyed the school, they have not even had facilities to train. So these kids have been very adaptive. They played in that brutal region last year with Douglas County, Hughes. I think we're going to see them come out with a lot of support, which is key for these spring scrimmages. The community's behind them. I think this team is poised for something special, and they've got a ton of talent. I think some other ones, God, who was Troop set to play? I think that was, I have to go back and look that up, but I want to see Troop in the spring. I'm going to have to double check that one, but I think last year, losing their quarterback like they did, they just have so much talent, and I think a new region and adapting last year like they did, I think they're going to be ready to roll.
No doubt about it. For me, Craig, I got Peachtree Ridge Milton. I just want to see the step forward that they are able to take. Actually, Craig, I got a clip I want to show you as well that it kind of went a little viral for him. But let's see if we pull it up real quick. All right, make sure it has no audio. Seen it actually this weekend.
While we're waiting, Brookwood's going to do a team scrimmage against themselves. I think that's important for them. They're obviously a big school. They were super young last year, so I think some of those inter-program scrimmages will be fun to watch as well.
No doubt about it. Great point out about Craig. All right, so here is the clip, Craig. I want to get your instant reaction. I don't know if you've seen it this weekend, but it is going kind of viral right now. He's going to be playing against Milton. But this is the clip. Obviously, you guys know that is Darnell Kelly. Here is the clip. So, as you guys can see, kid has the athleticism. We've been saying it for long. He's underrated kid. Obviously, at a Peachtree Ridge, but I'll throw to you in a sec, correct. But my quick just point out is just obviously the ability to be elusive right here. Boom, stop it on the dime right there. See the pressure coming, still deliver a dot. I mean, kid's special. But what's your thoughts?
That's just reps. I mean, obviously he's only going to be a junior, but so many times to still have timing after that spin move.
He delivered right in the bucket. He didn't have to adjust or anything. Boom, right here. I'm actually excited to see him. I mean, obviously,
Heisman player right there.
Yeah, I mean, obviously he but yeah, man, I think he's going to be exciting to watch. Milton has so many players. Obviously, you talked last week about Rump actually transferring out, but I think it's going to be an interesting team to watch. Both of them, Peachtree Ridge and Milton. Obviously, Milton will be 5A, Peachtree Ridge will be 6A, but just seeing what they're able to bring, I knew last year that Milton would be pretty good when I was able to see them. Obviously, spring you're working out the kinks and things like that. The fall scrimmages are really where it's at, but it'd be good to kind of see the installation of the new players, some of the young guys, what roles they're able to carve out.
Yeah, and an interesting note last year, who did Peachtree Ridge scrimmage? They scrimmaged Kel, and they actually got torched in that scrimmage. And look how they responded. They came out, immediately had success in the season. So they had a tough spring last year. I think this season for Peachtree Ridge secondary to match up against Milton in this, what a great look for them. We know what Peachtree Ridge will be able to do offensively, but I think matching up with that receiving core, communicating, all those different targets, it is a complete offense. They've got the tight end, they've got all these receiving weapons. I think it's huge for that Peachtree Ridge secondary to go out there and get tested and see if you can handle one-on-one coverage against probably the top receiving core in the state.
No doubt about it. And as you guys can see, some other places blowing up. Tristan Payne. Can't wait to see what he's going to look like. Obviously, along with CJ Wiley, they still got obviously Ryan Gia. They got weapons galore. TJ Lester. And then Peachtree Ridge, like who's going to be their playmaker? Some of them Rod Thomas, but who will be some other guys that's going to be running that offense? I think it's going to be great, man. And I think this is the year for Darnell Kelly.
Here's a question. Within these spring games, is there a player that has transferred that you're looking forward to see?
That's a good one.
Maybe Tommy Lafayette, North Gwinnett.
Yeah, he's going to be interesting. I'm talking about the Buford game here in a second.
Gainesville obviously has a bunch of new guys
that they do. I can't think of any top of my head. I want to see what yeah. So I'll go ahead and say it. But Buford plays Norcross. They announced that today, May 9th. I want to see what TJ Wilcox looks like potentially for Buford. What installation is he running? Is he second team offense? How does that look? I'm interested to see what he does. Obviously, like you said, North Gwinnett. What does Tommy Lafayette look like at the running back spot? For them, I think he's going to be a game changer for North Gwinnett and what they're trying to do. And then they're going to play Gainesville. And then I want to see what Norcross looks like this year. Yeah, but players, top of my head.
What about Hayden Zachary?
Yeah, with Carrollton. Yeah, that'll be interesting. I don't know if have they announced they're doing anything yet?
I have not seen it.
Yeah, I haven't seen anything. If anything, I know they usually do practice.
I think that'll be important because last year, and I keep bringing up the same one, but if you remember that Kel Peachtree Ridge scrimmage, that was when Kyle Vaca had his breakout. He dominated that spring game, made a circus catch over the middle, had a touchdown, and you saw what confidence was built just from that. So some of these players that have transferred, this really is an opportunity for them to make that first impression.
That's a good point. Yeah, that's a good point. Yes, I 100% agree with you. So that's your thoughts. Did you see any other spring games that stood out to you, Craig? I know mine.
I have not. I'm going to get on that, though. Gosh, it's coming up. Let's see.
Yes, it is.
Nothing. So I have Carrollton scrimmage right here. spring schedule, I don't see anything.
Yeah, I say for me, yeah, those would be my three. Appreciate Regional and Gainesville North and that, and then
Yeah, I think Carrollton's probably going to do
in the squad.
in their squad.
Yeah.
That would make sense. And then just come out healthy. You got so much returning talent.
That they do.
Yeah.
A lot of return talent, a lot of guys coming in. Oh, I would say one that just transferred, or not just transferred, but earlier this year, Zealous Hicks of formerly Parkview over at Carrollton. See what he looks like.
Yep, and then who is? I'm trying to think who is Westlake. Here we go. I got that their schedule, but I'll have to look at it. But lots of coaches making interviews as well. That should be interesting.
Yes, it should, but that's our thoughts. Then it's going to conclude our high school segment. We're going to get into some college. Obviously, you guys know it is the portal day today, so a lot of guys entering the portal, leaving the portal, things like that. So we'll have the latest on that, but we're going to get us ready. We're going to hit here in just a second, talk about UGA. Obviously, they had their spring game, a lot of spring games this weekend. Alabama had theirs, Georgia Tech. I think I seen there was another one. I think it was another program that had their Tennessee, thank you. Tennessee also had their spring game. So a lot of ones there. UGA obviously was loaded. I know there was a lot of media talent there. Checking them out, and a lot of people was there. So, any quick impressions, real quick, before we bring on Hayden?
I think with UGA, I mean, the defense looked phenomenal, no doubt about that. But I was impressed with the level of difficulty of the catches those receivers were making. That's big time. They all delivered when the game. Those highlight catches, I mean, it was unbelievable. So my confidence in UGA's receivers has gone up tremendously.
Do you like what you've seen?
Yes, because last year it's like they struggled to make, I don't know, to really gain separation and really have a reliable passing game, but they were making catches that were contested. So Kobe White, his ability after the catch, I mean, that's huge. And then what happens when you can turn a play into an even bigger play? You put pressure on them, they start playing off, then you can have the check down routes, the double moves, it just opens everything up. So I thought it was huge. The receivers looked phenomenal.
No doubt about it. Well, without further ado, we're going to go ahead and bring on Hayden and talk a little bit more, get a kind of in-depth look at it, and obviously get our thoughts.
Let's go.
What happened? Here he is. Hey, Hayden, what's going on?
Not much, man. How are y'all doing?
We doing good, man. We appreciate you coming on. How's your weekend?
It was good. It was good. Got to watch some football. Had a great day Sunday, and now I'm here.
Love to see it. Love to see it. All right, Hayden. So we got to get your thoughts, man. Obviously, we're gonna go in depth, but just kind of talk about G-Day. What stood out to you? What kind of caught your eye?
I'm with Craig. The depth of the wide receiver talent that was shown. I think close to 20 guys caught a different pass, and that's without transfer tight end Benjamin Ushett coming in on campus yet, and without other freshmen that you would expect to catch balls like Dwight Phillips from Pebblebrook. I think it really showed depth and a range of player talents that we really haven't seen at Georgia. Colby Young stood out to me. I mean, he's massive, 6'5", 215, 220. I think he's going to be a huge weapon in the red zone and huge contested catch kind of guy. And then Dominique Lovett, I think, had an absolutely amazing game.
Okay, got you. So you were also impressed with the receivers. Now, kind of tell me a little bit. What were your thoughts, Hayden, on the quarterbacks? I heard that Beck struggled a little bit, but got it going late. Gunnar Stockton showed a little flash, but struggled some too. What were your thoughts on the QB room?
I thought the offenses came out a little flat. It felt like there was not a ton of energy coming from them, and I think that caused some mistakes, and I think also a lot of stuff that just the defense took really good advantage of. there was a pass, like one of Beck's interceptions was a ball bad at the line by Michael Williams. I'm not sure I can. You don't like that interception, but it's not a awful interception. Uh, but I mean, it wasn't a great day. I thought the 2-minute drills from both Stockton and Beck at the end of the second and into the fourth quarters really showed when they get into a groove and when they're allowed to run a hurry up and not think about it, they both played really well.
No doubt about it. And then this kind of talk a little bit about the defensive performance in the game. How would you rate overall? And then I know Michael Williams got a lot of the kind of praise and was interviewed after the game. What stood out about his performance as well?
When it comes to Michael, I mean, he's made the move from defensive end slash sometime on pass rushing plays defensive tackle to now outside linebacker, and I I think it's a great move for him. It's interesting. He's at 6'5". I think he's pushing. I mean, he's well over 260, I believe, to be able to play outside linebacker and to be able to fall back in coverage and play the way he does is just amazing. What he was able to do on Saturday, and it's hopefully we'll see more of that coming this fall.
Yeah, he was a heck of a basketball player back in the day too. So I mean, he is very athletic. What did you just sense from the defense? Because obviously they made a lot of plays. It's a spring game. They probably, I mean, they're playing hard, but it is a scrimmage. So what do you think just of the overall effort, kind of how they gelled together, and what impressed you most?
I thought they played really hard. I thought it showed a lot of depth, especially when considering that they're missing some of their best players. Smile Munden was out with an injury. Malachi Starks was out with an injury. I think we saw some good things from the cornerbacks, which was a concern coming into the season. I mean, you're losing Kamari Laster, who's one of the is a probably a second round talent at cornerback and someone that was really the shutdown corner last year. And I thought they showed good depth there, and I thought they played well. Um, I think safety was a concern for me not coming into the game without Malachi Starks, but I think with Aguano, Dan Jackson, and then I thought some new guys in Jake Pope and KJ Bolden, both Buford guys, played really well for the second team defense.
And then what'd you like from Carson Beck?
I I think Beck showed what he showed all last year. That even when stuff starts to go wrong, he's cool, he's collected, he makes good throws, he makes them on time. He plays very well within the offense.
And then Hayden, talk a little bit about just like kind of like you said, you talked about Pope and Bolden, but who were some second team guys either side of the ball that you thought made a pretty big impact in this game that really kind of caught your eye?
I think a lot of the new players on the defense. I mentioned Bolden. I think both the new linebackers, Chris Cole and Justin Williams, really showed how talented they are. Just like KJ, I think after getting a full off season with spring, summer workouts, fall camps, you're really going to see them not start because Georgia's so deep at that linebacker position, but get significant playing time as true freshmen.
Got you. And then let's go to the trenches, Hayden. What were your thoughts on that? Just offensive line. You got two of the best interior offensive linemen in the country. What's your thoughts on them and even some of the second team guys?
The depth was that Georgia's built, I thought, was really impressive. In years past, the first team offensive line has always been really good under Kirby Smart. But there was times when the second team offensive line in these spring games got taken advantage of by the defensive line of the second team. I think this year they really held their own and at times dominated the second team defensive line.
And then in the backfield, Trevor had some really hard runs, lowering his head. He also, I believe, caught some passes out of the backfield. How huge was it for him to come in and make such a strong debut?
I think the running back position as a whole, Trevor had a great game, but I think he may be the most explosive and most complete running back since possibly DeAndre Swift at Georgia. But I also thought Roger Robinson, I guess he's a sophomore now, had a really good game. While he may not be the home run threat, he still has breakaway speed and they're very different runners. I think that they can provide a really good 1-2 punch moving forward in this season.
Then obviously the offense They do a great job moving the ball down the field, racking up the yards. But without a Brock Bowers, what's your confidence level just of Georgia in the red zone this upcoming season?
I'm confident. The tight end they brought in, or they're bringing in, he won't be until after spring camp. Benjamin Usek. He is one of the top tight ends in the country. He was, I think, top 5 transfer tight end in the country. He would have been drafted if he had entered the draft this coming year. And then Oscar Delp was a unquestioned top 3 tight end in the country for a reason. I think they're both, when it comes to the red zone, when it comes to guys defined in the red zone, I think they're just as good as what Brock Bowers could do catching the ball. I don't think they bring what he did in being able to take the ball in jet sweeps and being able to, in the open field, go 50 yards for a touchdown. But I think they're both really good. And then, as I mentioned earlier, Colby Young at that massive size for a wide receiver is so physical and surprisingly runs a really good routes. I think he's going to be a major impact in the red zone.
And did you get to keep an eye on KJ Bolden at all?
KJ had a really good game for a true freshman. He had times when he got taken advantage of a little bit, but some of those I think more so were he's so talented and is so instinctual that he's in the right place. So he's getting taken advantage of on plays that maybe he shouldn't even be in the play. But there was times when he came up, read the play well, blew up plays the line of scrimmage, made tackles under short games. I think he had a really good game, and as he grows into this defense, he's going to be a elite player.
Thoughts on cornerback Elias Robinson? Obviously, he was heavily recruited from Florida, I believe, IMG Academy. What's your thoughts on him?
I thought he had an okay game. I thought he was a little quieter than I think some people expected, but at the same time, that's not always a bad thing as a cornerback. He didn't have any of the really flashy plays, but he still showed some ability to be the reason that he was a top 2 player in the country.
Yeah, they're saying he's one of the best cover corners anyone's ever seen. The thing with KJ, obviously he's been watching film, and Buford does a great job. They run like a college, but they're going to show him and break down this game film. They're going to allow him to better understand what the offense is doing, get more comfortable, and then he's going to be able to play fast. I think that it's tough, like going in there. It's a big stage. I think he's going to be able to grow quickly because they're going to show him film. Trust me, they keep track of everything. Stats that we don't even think of. Just here's how you do against this. And then they divide all his practice film into categories. So I think they're really going to coach him up. Do you think we're going to see him? Like, what do you think his impact's going to be this year?
It's hard to say right now. I think to start out with, I don't think he's going to have a starting role on this defense like Malachi starts. I think they're just too deep at safety. But I think what you're going to see is you're going to see him come in first. They're going to figure out what he does best right now. And they're going to put him into situations and packages where he can shine and grow behind stars like Malachi Starks and Aguero and other guys that have spent 2-3 years in the program. And you're going to see him growing. Even by the end of the season, he may be playing significant snaps for this team.
And then a lot of times in these spring games, you'll see the starters play early, and then once the backups get in, it's like you can tell there's a little drop off. How deep do you think this year's Georgia team is just after watching 4 quarters of their spring game?
I think they're as deep as Georgia ever is. There's a few positions. Running back's a little concerning right now. Andrew Paul just announced he's entering the transfer portal, I believe, yesterday. I thought he had a good game for the second team. And then Branson Robinson, the true freshman I believe it was true freshman last year, is still coming off that patellar tendon injury. At the time they didn't even know if he was ever going to play football again. He's not going to be ready for contact until the fall. And then Nate Robinson and Dwight Phillips won't be on campus until fall practice. So that's there's a little bit of concern there, but everywhere else I feel like Georgia is very deep. I feel like the defensive line is. You had transfers like Xavier McLeod have a great game where he was all over the field running sideline to sideline. And then other guys like Jordan Hall and other players that were highly touted and had some playing time last year are going to grow into positions next year.
Yep, quarterback's obviously deep too. What do you think of that Lovett touchdown grab? How would you describe it?
It's amazing for anybody, but especially, I mean, the handful of times you've seen it's either someone make catch like it. Normally it's tight ends, big X wide receivers, not 5'11" Dominique Lovett, who showed the ability to really just control the defensive back while he just pinned the ball to his back.
It was unbelievable. And then, I mean, I had to watch it like 5 times, and then to slam into the fence like that. I mean, if that's a play he's making in a spring game, he's doing it at practice. I mean, that was unbelievable. Obviously, in the season, you're hoping guys are more open and it's a little easier. But what do you think that play, when you have these high schoolers coming to the spring game, like maybe it's a high school receiver, when they see someone make a play like that, do you think it kind of puts it in perspective just how talented some of these college players are?
I think it does 2 things. One, it shows how talented and how well Georgia develops, but it also shows the amount of effort that Georgia puts in for everything, and the amount, because it is just a spring game. In the end, it's just a scrimmage, and it's one of multiple scrimmages, and some coaches will even say it's when these teams have 2 scrimmages, it's the less important and the one they show less to the public than they do in their private scrimmage that they have. But it shows that how committed and how hard you have to work if you're going to be at the University of Georgia.
Yeah, I feel like if you're a high schooler and you're there, you're feeling good, you're a top recruit, and then you see someone make that catch, slam into the fence, and get up, and you're just like, okay, like I still got some work to do.
Yeah, I mean, it shows how. I mean, in college, I think a lot of high schoolers come in and they're the best player that they've ever played with, and then you get to college and you're playing with guys, especially now that have been in college for 4 or 5, even sometimes 6 years.
Yeah, and then obviously we didn't see like the whole playbook open up, but how versatile do you think this offense can be this year? Sometimes they criticize for being a little predictable. Do you think it'll be able to open up maybe a little more creativity this year?
I think so. It feels like this year, if the spring game is any will show anything for this coming season, that Carson Beck and some of these young guys and like transfers like Ra Thomas and Dominique Lovett are building more of a connection they had last year, where last year it felt like if it wasn't Brock Bowers or Loud McConkey when they were both healthy, then there was times in the passing game struggled. But I also think that the offensive line is so physical and dominant that you're going to see games when Georgia is just willing to play murder ball and just squeeze the life out of any team that's less talented than them.
Yeah, I feel like that's what they need to do. And you were talking a little bit, was it the 2-minute offense that maybe looked a little inconsistent?
No, the 2-minute offense was
I think,
was what really stood out when Stockton was able to drive down with less than a minute on the clock, I believe, and get a field goal to either tie or take the lead at the end of the first half. He played better than he did the majority of the first half. Then Beck driving down for that touchdown that Lovett had late in the game, I thought was the best Carson looked all game.
My question for you, Hayden, it's time to talk about, obviously, you just talked about the QBs, but outside of Gunnar Stockton and Carson Beck, how did the guys under them kind of look, the 3rd, the 4th, the 5th guys, in your eyes?
Right now, the position there, I think Georgia has 2 guys that could be starters. Then after that, outside of Puglisi, who is a true freshman, there's everyone else's walk-ons. It's not the past few years where Georgia's had 4 or 5 guys in that quarterback room. So there's some concern there if there was a rash of injuries that Georgia may not be great, but I think the 4th-string quarterback is Jackson Muschamp, who is the son of Will Muschamp, one of Georgia's defensive analysts now. And he was a mid 3-star recruit. He was originally committed to Colorado State to play. At the time, I think Mike Boba was the head coach there, and then decommitted and walked on at Georgia. So it's just, I don't think there's a lot of depth there. If there was a rash of injuries, like if you see quarterback 1, 2, and even possibly 3 go down, that is a concern. But and especially with the current state with no quarterback currently committed.
Got you. And actually, that might change. So speaking of, if you don't mind, Craig, I know you got more questions on the spring game. I just want to transition real quick just to add some a little bit about the recruits, and then we can come back. They just landed another recruit, Hayden. They just landed outside edge linebacker Darren Ignagbon. I might be saying his name wrong, but had a great season this past year. 52 tackles, 13 tackles for loss, 5 sacks, 2 forced fumbles, and a fumble recovery. What's your thoughts on him?
So it's Darren Ignagbon. He's a really interesting prospect. I think I don't think he's only been playing football a few years. He's from Nigeria. And then at his frame, what position he's going to play is really a question mark, sort of like it was for Michael Williams, where he came in at similar size as 6'5", 250. I'm not saying they're equal prospect, but they're both kind of that raw, big recruit that you could see him put on 40, 50 pounds and be an interior defensive lineman. You could see him put on 20 pounds and be a true defensive end, or you could see him stay about his same weight moving forward and play outside linebacker. It's really interesting. He's a really interesting prospect moving forward.
No doubt about it. And then obviously the big one which is going to happen tomorrow, and that's Ryan Montgomery. Right now, currently crystal ball to Georgia via Steve Wiflong of On 3 Sports. Also, his top 3 includes Georgia, Florida, and obviously South Carolina. What's your thoughts on that? As we just talked about, still looking for that 25 guy he could potentially be at. What's your thoughts on that?
I think this is the biggest. Well, as of right now, it's the biggest scheduled recruitment in the country for the foreseeable future. And it's probably the biggest recruiting battle that Georgia needs to win. Right now, it seems like they are the front runner for him. Of course, with Zollers, I thought that Penn State was going to get him, and he ended up going to Missouri. So anything can change very quickly. But as of just a few days ago, it felt like he was going to South Carolina. So I think that it's a huge recruiting battle. I think he's a really good prospect. I've watched a good bit of film on him. He has a good arm. It's not incredible, but he makes great decisions. He knows, you see that he understands a lot of the intricacies of the position.
Okay. I'll throw it back to you, Craig.
And then what were some of the big names, big recruits that were able to come out to Athens this last weekend?
There was all kinds of players. I believe, God, I'm going blank on some of the names.
I know Justice Terry was there.
Justice Terry, I believe. I can't remember. I believe Elijah Griffin may have been there. He may not have been. I was not at the game.
Let's see.
Was Antoine Hill there?
No,
he was not.
Travis Smith Jr. was there. I know
Travis
for sure.
Smith Jr. was that.
Todd Robinson was there.
The interesting thing about it was that a lot of recruits that I think one of the big ones that was shocking to me, I do not believe Bo Walker was there, the George Smith running back from Cedar Grove.
Nope.
And I think there is some questions on his recruiting moving forward now that Del McGee is no longer there.
Yes. Yeah, that's a good point. Hayden, actually, obviously a little bit about Bo, because he's been posting with like going to different campuses. I think I've seen him at Georgia State with Del McGee. So I could potentially see him, obviously, like you said, with his recruiting, I could see him potentially flipping as well, Craig. Just with obviously, his guy not being there, him going to different campuses like, some of these SEC schools. I think I've seen him at either Auburn recently, obviously there. So I think, as you mentioned, Hayden, that it's a potential chance he could get flipped.
And then another one of the big ones I just thought about was Jared Curtis was there. 2026 quarterback commit to Georgia. I think that's was a big guy to get on campus and to get to see G-Day.
Yeah, no doubt about it. Yeah, that kid's the real deal.
Yeah.
Jared Curtis is.
Other names I had to look him up. Elias Williams was there. Now I say that I remember that because there was multiple things about how much just of a freak of nature he is. I mean, that's 6'7", 240 coming out of high school. I forgot. It may have been Russ that said that he's the biggest freak of nature player he's covered since he's been covering football in the state of Georgia.
No doubt about that. Speaking of guys that are just massive, did you see anything from Daniel Calhoun in this scrimmage?
I don't remember if I did. It's hard to get. It's hard if you're not really paying attention to some of the guys in the trenches. That Georgia rotates a lot of players in there. I know that he had a lot of. He was getting some first team reps at guard in spring practice. And there was some really good things said about him, especially. I mean, at his size, there was some concern that he would take a few years just because to develop, turn some of that weight that was maybe not good weight into better weight, but to see him already starting to get playing time with the ones in spring practice, I think is a very good sign and something that I think he'll be at the very least a rotational piece moving into fall camp in the season.
Sure.
Then what about just depth on the defensive line? Is that something you think is a strength? And what's the likelihood we'll see some players move in this transfer window?
From my understanding, I think Georgia has to at least see 2 more players leave in the transfer portal. My understanding is right now they're at 87 scholarships, and they have to get down to 85 before fall practice. When it comes to defensive line, I don't think they're extremely deep there. I think they are, but at the same time, I don't think it's concerned. It's not the Georgia of 2021 where you had players like Jalen Carter coming off the bench and playing a rotational role, who was one of the top prospects in the next year's draft. But at the same time, I think, McLeod played really well. They've recruited very well. I think that should be a position that, while maybe not the strength it was in 21 and 22, I think it's still a strength in the sense of you return Nazir Stackhouse, I believe. You return a handful of guys that have been in the program for, they're seniors, redshirt seniors, super seniors, and then you bring in you give players like Jordan Hall, and Jamal Jarrett, and a lot of the other really young defensive linemen, and then some of the edges like Samuel Mpemba, who had raving reviews coming out of spring, more time to develop and play. And when they get playing time, they're playing in roles that really fit their skill set.
Yeah, there's certainly a lot of new pieces. I feel like this is going to be a very fast defense. It always is, but I know Missouri, they lost a lot from their run game, but it's like if you have a solid run game and you can slow down the game and keep it out of Georgia's hands, I think there's a potential mismatch just because I don't think that the defensive line isn't as disruptive, I think, this year in previous seasons, but we'll see what happens. But that's my only concern. There's not much depth at this point.
And with the injuries we see at defensive line, it's a little concerning to not have when the guys that are currently starting were backups in 21 and 22, I think it's a little concerning. But I still think there's enough depth to be an elite defense. And then with the linebackers behind them, I think Georgia will be fine at the defensive line.
No doubt about it. Well, Hayden, we thank you as always for coming on, giving the latest insights into the Georgia program. You're doing a good job just covering them and giving us some insight. So we want to say we appreciate you. Thanks for letting us talk a little bit about G-Day, and we'll see you next week.
Thank you, guys.
Yes, sir. All right, guys. So there goes Hayden. Appreciate him giving us some intel on the Georgia program and kind of diving into that. Thanks for all the viewers that are tuned in. We got one more guy we're going to bring on, Max, to talk a little bit about Alabama. Same kind of thing. What caught his eye? Give us a little bit of intel on that program. But last thoughts on Georgia before he comes on.
I think ending in a tie is fitting. It was a success. No one got hurt.
Yes.
And
yes.
I think they're going to be ready to go. It's about 136 days until kickoff. I think you're going to see the offense really come out with a lot of energy this year.
No doubt, and I agree with you. I think that's going to be the biggest question for them defensively. Their depth at the D-line spot. Usually a very deep kind of unit. What does that kind of look like going forward? Who are going to be some guys that's going to step up?
And then the other potential problem team you could face is like if you have a pretty good mobile quarterback that's going to be able to improvise. The secondary might be covered, but man, if they can start putting some pressure with their legs, maybe a physical runner at the quarterback position, they can definitely keep that ball out of your hands, and that might be the only way to beat Georgia this year.
Yes, it may be, but that's what we got for now, guys. We're going to keep it rolling before we bring him on. I guess we can talk real quick before Max comes on. Transfer portal is now open. Our guy that we got to see a lot, Craig, Darius Cannon, officially has hit the portal as well. He announced on his Twitter. What's your thoughts on that?
Man, well, I think it's interesting what Hayden brought up, the fact that some of these teams, it's like out of necessity, they're going to have to fill a certain amount of spots based on the scholarships.
Yep.
So it's tough, but as long as you've got a plan and you aren't just hitting it and hoping someone picks you up, I think we'll see a specific type of player hit it. It's not just going to be guys that are bitter.
That's true. And last thing, we're going to obviously ask him about it. But Caden Proctor also hit the portal. Do you think this is the last time, or you think he'll hit it a couple more times?
I think we'll see players that hit it every time.
All right. Got you there. All right. So we'll go ahead and bring him on, y'all. Talk a little bit to Max about what's the latest going on with the Alabama Crimson Tide. So, what's going on, Max? Can you hear us?
How we doing, guys? Good to see y'all.
Yes, sir. Doing good, man. Good to see you as well, man. How was your weekend?
It was good, man. Watching these games, it was good. It was good stuff. Finally, some type of football's back going on, but it's been good. Ready for the fall for sure.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. All right, man. So we'll go ahead and start with the nitty gritty. Just talk a little bit about the spring game. What really caught your eye when you seen Alabama play?
Yeah, it does look it looks different out there, doesn't it? It's just a different feel down there. There was 72,000 people down there in Tuscaloosa for DeBoer's first spring game. It seemed like the atmosphere was how it used to be, but it's just a different vibe down there with not Nick Saban at the helm. But it seemed like it was a good time. On the field, though, I would say the biggest things I saw, it's a lot different story from a year ago when everyone was wondering if it was going to be Milroe or Ty Simpson or Tyler Buckner even starting at quarterback. It definitely seems like Milroe has that spot all locked up. I know it's not news, but that's how I feel. It seemed like they were a lot more comfortable in the system, or at least getting more comfortable as they'll go on as well. But quarterbacks look good. Ty Simpson threw 7 of 12 for 102 yards. Yeah, the quarterbacks look great. The running backs probably will be the biggest strength of the team. The running backs, along with the combination of the interior offensive line with Tyler Booker and Jaden Roberts, and whether it's James Brockermeyer or Parker Brailsford at center, I think it's a good combination for some dominant ground and pound football. And then for that to go along with the running back room, I mean, they looked elite on Saturday, and it was Justice Haynes, Jam Miller, and Richard Young. And those three could become a three-headed monster when the fall comes around.
And then if you had to say who you think has the inside track right now to potentially start at the running back spot?
I would give it to Haynes just because he's gotten the snaps. I mean, he only got 25 snaps last year, or 25 carries, but I feel like he got the snaps when it mattered in the Rose Bowl, and he produced also when we needed first downs and yards to keep us in that game. But I feel like it's him, and then he's kind of like the more balanced attack, and then you bring in Jam Miller, who brings the speed, and then Richard Young with the strength, and it's just a good combination of backs to have.
No doubt about it. And then just tell us a little bit about what's your thoughts on the receiver room?
Receiver room, I think it will look fine. Jeremy Bernard caught 3 passes for 122 yards in the spring game, including 2 deep balls from Milrow. So I think he'll step up and become a big playmaker for Alabama. I think him to go along with Kendrick Law, who was a great receiver. He took some jet sweeps. He was a great blocking receiver downfield last season and showed some in the spring game as well. Him, and then you'll have Emmanuel Henderson as well. And then the inclusion of Ryan Williams coming the fall. It should make for a good receiving core.
No doubt.
And then out of some of the incompletions you saw from the quarterbacks, what do you think was the main factor in that? Was it timings, just a little off target? What did you think in some of those incompletions?
Yeah, I would say some of it's a little off target, maybe not being on the right page with the receivers at some time, but it's a whole new offense. It's gonna take some time. While they do look comfortable back there, it is a whole new scheme they're learning, and they're trying to whether it's getting Milrow out in space and letting him run or letting him. It seems he does seem way more comfortable with dropping back, and his throwing motion looks a little different, looks a lot cleaner, looks a lot smoother. But yeah, I think it could have been some timing issues, but I'm sure they'll figure it out come the fall.
Yeah, he looked great on the corner routes and just throwing towards the sideline. What do you think, though, about the fact that they didn't want to announce that he's their guy before the game? And then when do you think they will announce the starter?
That's a good question. I do feel like it's Milrow's job to lose. Although Ty had a great spring and Austin Mack and Dylan Lonergan as well also played well, I do feel like it's Jalen's job. And I feel like that'll be announced maybe sooner rather than later, but I could also see DeBoer waiting around to the fall. But I do feel like that's Milrow's job for sure.
Yeah, I feel like as a new coach, he needs to come in and like kind of show that they're leaving it open, they're evaluating, but it's also important to like put it in stone. He's our guy and have that confidence going into week 1. So I think it will come soon also. What do you think of the linebackers, though? It looks like they definitely look like they can be the best bunch in the SEC.
Yeah, I mean, they're very talented. I mean, Jahad Campbell didn't play on Saturday due to a new injury, but they had guys like Jeremiah Alexander who finished with 7 tackles. They had Deontay Lawson was out there, Quandarius Robinson. It looks like a solid group so far.
Yep, and then speaking of linebackers, what do you think of the Harmon commit?
Yeah, I mean, like y'all were saying earlier in the show, I mean, he's a great sideline-to-sideline player. He seems very fast and great in coverage as well. He had 80 tackles last season for Rome. I think he would fit very well in there. He seems like he's more of like in that hybrid role where he can drop back into coverage as well, but also get to the quarterback very fast and get back in the backfield.
Yeah, he's at, I think, 6'1", 215 after his junior season. So let's see if he decides to start bulking, stay at that weight. And I think, yeah, you're 100% right. He's almost like he's a linebacker, but that is like a strong safety metric. And he's definitely fast.
He's got great closing speed as well and great tackling in open space.
Then who do you think was the biggest winner of Alabama's spring game?
Biggest winner? That's a good question. I would say the offensive line. I would say they definitely showed up, and after all the scrutiny they took after last season, I feel like they came out ready to play and kind of dominated the trenches for a little bit there. I mean, they came out and the first 3 drives of the game, I believe, for the offense, they scored 3 touchdowns, 3 rushing touchdowns. And then the defense followed that up with 5 straight 3-and-outs. But from the jump, it was obvious that DeBoer wanted to make sure Alabama was still Alabama and continued to run the ball.
And then defensively for you, Max, kind of who stood out, who caught your eye, like to some of those players that really performed well?
Sure. So Justin Okoronkwo, I don't want to butcher his name, but he had 11 tackles. He's a freshman out of Germany, and he made an impact early on. He had a tackle in the backfield for a loss. That looked good. Red Morgan on the back end had 4 tackles and 2 QB pressures. So the young guys are looking to make an impact early. It'll be interesting to see where these guys all play out and where they do end up playing in the fall, because there is the talented cornerbacks with Mbakwe, Mincy, and Brown, who all got time on the field on Saturday and all looked good. But yeah, there's some guys, especially the underclassmen, are really showing up.
No doubt. And then what about at the DB spot? I know you were very high on them going in.
Yeah, Mbakwe was out there. Red Morgan again. He's a sleeper, and I feel like he'll get some definitely get some play at some point in the fall. But him, along with Keon Sabb from Michigan as well, also made some plays on Saturday. So it'll be interesting to see where everybody gets lined up and how Kane Womack will fit everybody into the rotation.
No doubt. And last position, just defensive line.
Defensive line. Yeah, so Jaheim Otis was actually out on Saturday as well with an injury, but they had guys such as Tim Smith, Tim Keenan, Jamarian Latham, James Smith, Damon Payne Jr., and then Justin Jefferson also filled in at linebacker, but that was for Campbell. But yeah, it seems like a very deep rotation for the defensive line. Those guys, not to mention also LT Overton from A&M. Craig, I know you and I were talking about him a couple weeks ago, but yeah, they all seem to be making an impact early on.
Yeah, and you were talking about the backfield with Haynes and then Jam Miller. Do you see them both sharing like a pretty significant role this season? And just what do you think about that change of pace you mentioned?
I think it'll be very beneficial for Alabama in the end. I feel like Haynes, Miller, and both Richard Young are all effective receiving the ball as well. So it'll just be interesting to see where they all get lined up. But I feel like it's Haynes' backfield, and I think him and Jam will probably end up splitting some carries in the end. But I do think it's Haynes' backfield, and I think he'll get the majority of the snaps.
And then offensively, did it look like Alabama football or Washington football?
It was a mix of both for sure. It was interesting because they were letting Milroe let it fly. They were letting all the quarterbacks let it fly downfield and deep balls left and right. It was just defense made some good plays on those deep balls sometimes. There was an interception, I believe. Forget who caught it. But, yeah, it definitely kind of looked a little reminiscent of Michael Penix and Rome Odunze last year.
Yeah, for sure. And I'm looking at it looks like Jam Miller actually got the game MVP award. That's huge for him. LT Overton got defensive lineman award, and then looks like Tyler Booker at the offensive line. So yeah, that's big for LT to come in and make that impact.
For sure. And then Jam also, I think he had 8 carries for over 80 yards and 2 touchdowns. Really displayed what he can do on the field. He can catch the ball. He, like from the start, just like with the formations they had, there was whether it was they had 2 running backs in the backfield or multiple tight end sets, they just looked ready to run the ball.
And then what about Dylan Lonergan? It looks like it's the first time we really got to see him out there. Made some good throws, high completion percentage. What do you think his Alabama career is going to look like? New coaching staff, just his potential to participate.
I feel like if they told him he wasn't going to have a shot to get on the field at some point, I feel like he would have been gone in the portal or something by now. So he's definitely there competing, and it definitely seems like he will at least have some chance to compete for that starting role at some point. But yeah, it was just nice to see him out there on Saturday. He made a couple of nice throws, and we'll just see where that ends up.
And then thoughts on another guy that you were real high on, Caleb Odom.
Yeah, he definitely made some plays on Saturday. They were splitting him out wide, which we all thought coming in that would be very beneficial for anyone, for at least him at that 6'5" frame, getting outside and, yeah, maybe throw him a jump ball or 2 during the season. But it would be interesting to see where he ends up in the end, at least on the field.
And then a good backfield, a lot of talent returning at quarterback. Do you think Alabama is going to be a team this year that can really connect on that deep ball?
I feel like Milroe last year was one of the most effective parts of his game was throwing that deep ball. And I feel like this year with DeBoer and the new coaching staff, who it seems like they put an emphasis on the deep ball last year at Washington, I feel like it could only get better from here on out. And especially with the speed that they still have at receiver with Bernard and then Ryan Williams and Kendrick Law, and even Emmanuel Henderson as well. I feel like it can definitely get better.
Do you think Bama – no doubt. Do you think, obviously, Bama's been known as a staple at having wide receivers just producing studs, like, all of them, Devontae Smith, Jalen Waddle, Julio Jones, the list goes on and on. Do you think this year they can have one of those staple guys? Obviously, they got a great unit it's more than one guy, but do you think they'll have like kind of one of those staple guys, whether that's a Ryan Williams or, something like that?
Yeah, I mean, it would just be interesting to see again. DeBoer has been able to capitalize on having these great receivers in the past. And I think this year, while it might be like you have the big guys like Ryan Williams coming in, I do feel like it will be more of a group effort from here on out. I think it would be the talent is there for sure. I just feel like as a unit, I feel like they'll definitely produce. Yeah.
And then offensively, there's going to be a ton of confidence. Obviously, he comes in as a offensive mastermind, but defensively, do you feel like this year's Alabama team is going to take a drop off defensively from previous years, or do you think they'll be able to get it done?
I feel like it would be same old, same old. I trust in Kane Womack to dial it up and to blitz when he needs to and to drop back in coverage and really have all parts of the field covered. It'll just be a different look to see, but I feel like it'll be a bunch of the same old as people remember old Alabama defenses as well.
We shall see.
We shall see. Well, Max, we want to say we appreciate you, man, coming on, talking a little bit about Bama, and giving us the latest take on it. Obviously, we'll keep you on here and keep having you tell us what's going on with the program. Very exciting times, and now we enter summer workout, so I'm sure there'll be plenty of news, transfer portals, and additions and things like that. So can't wait for that, and I appreciate you coming on.
Yes, sir. Thank y'all for having me.
Yes, sir. Bet.
Yes, sir.
All right, there goes Max, guys. That's the latest on the Bama program. Again, we'll keep you locked. It is the transfer portal, so you'll be seeing a lot of news, ins and outs, and clues and cues and things like that. So we will keep you locked and make sure you come in every Tuesday at noon for Underrated Overlooked. But before we move on to NFL, Craig, what other spring games kind of caught your eye and other games spring games you want to talk about?
Tennessee was pretty interesting. We still have South Carolina this weekend, so let's see what they do. Arkansas looks like their offense is going to be very fun to watch.
Yes.
They are very excited what they have going on there. They're searching, I think, just for some maybe additions on the offensive defensive line and the transfer portal, but they're going to be very fun to watch. LSU looked great, but I want to get your take on just Georgia Tech being there in person. Just walk us through the game, some of the highlights, and just how it went.
Yeah, for sure. So for me, like Georgia Tech is very loaded at the QB spot, right? And I thought Coach Key did a great job of obviously talking a little bit about Zach Pyron, who kind of gets lost in the shuffle a little bit. A lot of great young guys. They got a 6'7" guy, Graham Knowles from Texas. He looked good, but man, I tell you what, man. Obviously, Haynes King looked good as well, scored on 2 or 3 of those possessions. Looks like they're going to take that next step. But, man, I tell you, Aaron Philo looked really good, man, on the next level. I definitely think he'll have an opportunity to get in there next year after, Kings potentially leaves and potentially compete. I know that Pyron's going to be in there. That'll probably be the guy. But, I mean, you can't not like what you didn't see from Philo. He led the only 2 scoring drives for Team Reckham in the game. He was connected with so many guys, Craig, the former connection with him and Bailey Stockton at Prince Ave. They were connecting a lot. He was throwing the fade ball to a Zion Taylor, a jump ball that was very accurate. So Philo looked really good in my opinion. They're loaded there, and they're at wide receiver. Oh, my goodness. They got so many guys, Craig. It's crazy. Might be one of the most loaded wide receiver rooms in the country. And I don't say that slightly. They got Eric Singleton Jr., Malik Rutherford. They got a guy that's 6'5" that's been hurt, Leo Blackburn. He looked good out there. They got so many guys that can plug and pull. Chris Elko, didn't even talk about him. I can't wait to see if he potentially can, find a role for them this season. He was great, 4 catches, 136 yards, and a touchdown. Zion Taylor looked good out there. Bailey Stockton looked good. They're just loaded at, I think, quarterback and wide receiver for sure.
Yeah, Bailey Stockton is so good. I compared him to Ladd McConkey. He is great in the seam. He can run like over the middle in the slot. He is physical. He was stiff-arming people with a broken collarbone. Did we also see, though, you mentioned quarterback Ben Guthrie. Did he get time also?
He did get a little bit of time at the end. Obviously, he's one of their walk-ons, but he also flashed as well and made some really good throws. And Reese led I think, the final scoring drive as well in that game to make it a little bit tighter. So he looked very good out there. He was making some nice throws over the middle, pressured a little bit, was able to kind of, escape and elude and create time. But he also looked good.
Yeah, and he is a very elusive quarterback. That kid works his butt off and was always a very exciting quarterback to watch.
Yes, for sure.
Making tons of plays. What do you think, though? I guess special teams. Let's talk about the kick. Hayden Burr, 62-yarder. I mean, that's pretty big time.
As Coach Key said, like we wouldn't have had him attempted if we didn't have the confidence in him. So that obviously says a lot. That's another weapon you add to the arsenal, Craig. I mean, he barely missed from 59. The wind kind of caught it up a little bit, shifted it to the left because it's a very windy day. But I thought he looked really good, and then you have another weapon, and then their other kicker just actually hit the transfer portal. So that goes to show you kind of what that means. But yeah, I mean, to have another guy and another weapon, like if you need a game winner or if you need to get some offense going, and you have to settle for that 60+ yard field goal, he's going to knock it down.
Yeah, no, that's a huge weapon. And then obviously Georgia Tech, they have a well-earned reputation of just being a very intelligent school, intelligent football program. What do you see from like the preparation standpoint? How did they look like they're in midseason form overall? Like the timing, just the preparedness.
Yeah, I'd say they looked very prepared, looked very crisp out there. I thought they were running their stuff, really well. Obviously, very vanilla. You don't want to give away too much of your stuff, but I thought quarterback-wise, besides one throw that was tipped by King, they looked really good on both sides. I thought, a position we haven't talked about, Craig, is the defensive back. They look very good. That's going to be a position of strength for them. Warren Burrell, the Tennessee transfer, looked really good. Had a couple PBUs and an interception in the game. But I thought overall they look like a well-oiled machine. They obviously got to work out a couple things and stuff like that, but they looked good there. Only thing, Craig, offensively, they'll have to figure out who's going to be the backup running back. They obviously were able to flip Anthony Carey. Jamal Haynes is going to be the guy, but they're going to need to find that other couple pieces behind him to see what he's able to do. But yeah, DB looked good, and I also got to give a shout out to Kale, Craig. Cedric Franklin has been getting a lot of buzz, formerly of Kale. He just played this season, Craig. A lot of guys have been talking very highly of him and what he's been able to do. Was up against Blackburn, had a PBU, had a really good coverage up against him, Craig. And actually, Blackburn actually gave him his flowers and said he was, one of the best guys I went up against this past spring in camp. So that's a good telltale, kind of sign for him and what he's able to do. And that could be a guy, Craig, that could get a little bit of playing time if it continues to kind of on that upward trajectory, alongside with some of those DBs, because they lost a lot there.
Yes, they did. But yeah, you're 100% right. Their receiving core, it's going to be able to get the job done.
Yes.
They are so loaded.
Yes.
I mean, even guys like Bailey Stockton, I mean, he is capable of starting. He is one of the biggest playmakers. He can beat guys over the top. And he's just one guy. Eric Singleton, he was All-American in track and field. He had one of the best seasons in the country last year as a freshman. He's back. Zion Taylor. It is Chris Elko. It is crazy how deep
loaded.
They are.
Yeah, that wide receiver depth is ridiculous.
So I feel like they'll be able to get that going immediately, put pressure on defense. But I think you're right. It is about the run game, because from a strategic standpoint, you need to be able to run the ball when you're trying to eat away the clock.
No doubt about it. Yeah, you got to be able to run it, and they got that. And Haynes looked really good out there on Saturday, Craig. I don't want to take anything away from him. 6 carries, 44 yards, very crisp. But the thing is, I don't want him to get overloaded and get tired. Obviously early. Not saying that he will. He's very well conditioned and things like that. Good endurance, but you're going to need a guy to spell him. Running backs. Georgia does it well. Got 2, 3, 4 guys you could throw in there. They're going to have to get a couple guys to kind of help out in that position. And last thing I'll note, only thing that concerns me, Craig, is just defensive line wise. Can they create a little bit more pressure? I feel like sometimes the quarterback can kind of sit back there. They're going to need to find a guy, whether that's portal or whether that's in the future, landing a really good edge rusher that can come in and really have a big impact. Obviously, got Zeke Biggers, who's good, but he's more defensive, tackle, things like that. They just need a guy to create a little bit more pressure, I think.
Yep. No, I think that's very good. But I bet the difference between last year's spring and this, I mean, they are so much more developed and just cruising. I think they're going to come out ready to roll.
No doubt about it. They're an exciting team, and can't wait. They'll get to prove it against a really good staple team in the ACC, which is Florida State and Ireland in August. So I think that'll be a good test to see where they're at.
Yes, it will, man. I'm not going to be able to make that one.
Me neither. It's too expensive on that one. But we'll leave that there. That's our thoughts on some of the spring games, obviously. We'll go to NFL before we conclude the show for today. But NFL draft is almost here, Craig. Who are you most excited about?
I think it's interesting for me just because I covered them. I want to see where Ladd McConkey goes, because I mean,
Yes.
it's such an interesting the fact that he might go in the first round, a guy that was barely recruited, played quarterback at North Murray, just showed up at Georgia, got it done when they needed a receiver. If he goes in the first round, could be, I mean, really special for North Murray, but also it just would prove like a guy that worked on his specific skill set. He's not the biggest, he's not the fastest, but he's able. He runs a 4.4. He's able to run great routes, and then if that ends up landing in the first round, I think that'd just be incredible. And a team would obviously take him for a very specific reason, and I think he'd be able to do very well. So, will he go in the first round? That's something I'm looking forward to. And I guess Caleb Williams also. I want to see where he ends up.
Excuse me, Craig. They said that he's the best route runner in this draft. I don't know what happened with me. Excuse me. They're saying that Ladd McConkey is the best route runner in this draft, Craig. So I do want to see where he goes. And I think whatever team gets him, they're getting a gem still.
Yeah. I mean, he can jump high. He's got a great vertical. But yeah, it's like every one of these receivers that's in the conversation for the first round. You got some that are a little faster than him. Marvin Harrison's obviously a little bigger than him, but like the way that the NFL works now, teams like the Chiefs, we'll talk about the Bengals in a sec, wanting to emulate that style. It's like when you have that shifty running back, can go in motion, fake the in route, sit down, read the defense, and just like catch it. And then Ladd does a really good job. As soon as he catches that ball, boom, positive yards, right up. Even look at the bowl game against FSU. Perfect example. That play where they tried to do a double pass to him. They threw the ball to him. He was supposed to find the target. The play wasn't there. He reversed it and found the pylon, made it look easy. He is just a great football player, and it's because he used to play quarterback. I mean, he knows how to read the defense. He can read the whole field, and I think that's why, I mean, his routes are just next level.
No doubt about it. I think for me, real quick, I'll go Joe Alt. It's rumors that he might get drafted by the Chargers. J.C. Latham from Alabama, I want to see where he goes. And then obviously Marius Mims. I think it's such a deep offensive line group, especially to start the draft. That's kind of where my eyes go, obviously, there. Want to see where those guys end up. And obviously, last but not least, Brock Bowers. They're saying potentially he might get drafted by the Jets. So there's a lot of, kind of discussion there. Does he fall? Does he get drafted early? I kind of want to see where he lands because he falls in kind of that Kyle Pitts generational talent. Obviously, Pitts hasn't panned out just yet to what he could be or become yet. We'll obviously have to see. But Bowers is in that same kind of category when you look at tight end prospects coming into the draft, generational.
100%. Both came from the SEC as well. But I think with Mims and some of these offensive line prospects, it is so hard to pass up on guys like that because you know what you're getting. Multi-year starter. You're getting someone that can come in immediately and start on the offensive line, which, I mean, that's something that's been proven time after time with these first rounders. So it's hard to pass on guys like that. It's hard to pass on a guy like Brock that you know is going to be able to come in with the experience he has, with what he's been able to do, make an immediate and lasting impact. So, yeah, I think those guys are big-time investments that if you want to build an offense, you got to have at least one of those guys. You got to have an offensive lineman that's going to be able to start multiple seasons, and then that tight end that's the future of your franchise. So I think they're going to go very high, and no matter where Brock ends up, he's going to get it done.
No doubt. So we'll keep it locked there. We'll obviously keep you guys updated. Draft's right around the corner. Hard to believe, but we're going to have full reaction on NFL draft night afterwards on that Tuesday, so we can't wait for that. But let's talk Bengals and Chiefs in a second. Tee Higgins came out and said he's going to remain in Cincinnati for 2024. Are you buying it, Craig?
Well, I think so, because what's the only scenario of him leaving is if he gets traded through the draft.
Yeah, that's it.
And who are the potential teams that would do it? I know it's been rumored that the Lions would.
Yeah, Carolina.
Okay, Carolina as well.
Yeah.
So
maybe Jacksonville.
I think that's an interesting rumor. Obviously, when anyone's getting placed on that franchise tag, that gives them that leverage to test the market. because being a franchise tag, you want that extension. So there is motivation for him if he's looking at the money. But I think ultimately he wants to play with Joe Burrow. And
That's a good point.
yeah, I just wouldn't pass up on that.
That's a good point. Yeah, I agree with you, Craig. Kind of same point. Like, just depends. I think it's draft day. Like, if he's going to get traded, it's going to be during then. If not, then I think he's going to remain on the team at least for that final year. So we'll see what happens. Obviously, we want him. We want to have him, but I think it's going to be interesting. But obviously they want to chase their goals this season, which brings us to our next point. Got to get your reaction, Craig. What's your thoughts on Joe Burrow's comment on the Chiefs rivalry? And we've been saying it for long as we think it's a rivalry, but I don't know what the NFL is talking about, why they don't think it is. Obviously, they think it's built
Chiefs, quote unquote, we're built for it. And so,
yeah,
let's talk about this.
Let's talk about it.
Right before the Super Bowl this year, in January, after the season, Joe Burrow was saying the Chiefs, that's the team, they're the gold standard. Now he's saying we're built to beat them. So that's very interesting. One, and he also said that Mahomes, he's the quarterback we got to beat. He's the gold standard.
Yeah.
So he's giving the Chiefs praise, but then he's saying this rivalry, those other teams, they aren't getting it done. We've already beaten the Chiefs. We're the team that's going to do it. So I think he's giving them the praise. He's also putting them above all the other teams at AFC because obviously we've talked about it. I think the Bills are going to take a step down.
Yeah.
There's some other teams that will be improved this season. Obviously, Steelers got a bunch of new quarterbacks and stuff, but I think for him to say it, he's acknowledging that they're the team to beat. They're coming for him, and he's confident that they can beat them. And he's obviously looked closely at what the keys to the Chiefs' success has been. And I trust him. He's gotten it done before.
Yes, he has. And here's the quote officially. I think we match up pretty well with them. I think we're built to beat them. I always appreciate the legendary battles we have. That legendary word stood out to me, Craig, because I think that's what it is. I think the NFL and the marketing always goes, okay, what's the next Peyton Manning versus Tom Brady, right? And they try to do, Mahomes, Josh Allen, and things like that. And not that it's not a good, game or rivalry, but we know for the most part who's going to win that. The one that has the most blood in the water, these guys are not fans of each other. They respect each other's games, but, they're not fans of each other. I think it's this one. And like you said, I think he is acknowledging, as you mentioned, Craig, that the Chiefs are here and that Cincinnati's trying to get there. Obviously, they've beaten them, but they haven't accomplished that ultimate goal. But yeah, like he said, I just think those battles are legendary. All of the games, Craig, have came down to a single possession and 3 points every single time. And they've given us some pretty cool finishes every single time. So yeah, I think he's acknowledging that. I think he feels like, that he can go up toe-to-toe with Mahomes and not blink an eye, not bat an eye. When other guys have folded and have not played up to snuff, when they've had maybe more weapons, better talented teams than Mahomes has had, and they have not been able to do so. So I 100% agree with you, and I think it's one of the best rivalries in the league. I think this is the year that it'll finally get that national recognition that it deserves when they go toe-to-toe multiple times this year. But all it'll depend on, Craig, is if he can stay healthy. If he does, look out.
Yeah, no, it's been incredible. And I don't understand why people say it's not a rivalry. All the old quarterbacks, they're gone now. There's a new generation of quarterbacks. Okay, well, Mahomes is obviously going to be in that conversation because he's getting it done every year, winning 3 Super Bowls.
Yep.
Joe Burrow is the only guy that's beaten him. And all the games have been incredible. And how have the Bengals beaten them? They've relied on these clutch third down throws, incredible comebacks, and at time brilliance by Joe Burrow. And that's what it takes because, as you said, the other teams, they're folding under pressure. They're making that one costly mistake. Mahomes is seizing on it. Chiefs are walking away with victory. The Bengals have done the opposite. They've come up with the clutch game-winning play. They're the only team that's been able to do that in the big moment. So I 100% think that's the rivalry. If Joe Burrow is calling it out ahead of the season, it's putting a lot of pressure on him.
Yeah, but he loves pressure, though.
Exactly.
Yeah. So I can't wait, Craig. I think it'll be fun. Hopefully they'll put the game on Sunday night or, put it on, obviously, major network. But yeah, I think it's going to be exciting. But like you said, if we look at the hierarchy real quick before we conclude the show, right? Obviously, Chiefs. A lot of people are going Baltimore, Houston, and then obviously I think it's the Jets, and then Bengals up under there. But I think those teams got to show it.
Yeah, compare the Bengals Chiefs matchups in the playoffs to last year's Chiefs Ravens. It's not even close. I mean, that game was dreadful. People were saying the Ravens lost on purpose. I mean, no one's saying that in the Bengals. They're saying, oh, they got this one call went wrong, or it's like the games are just two great quarterbacks trading key plays, key drives. And I think Joe Burrow, after missing last season, the frustration, I think he's going to come in ready to go, maybe even have an MVP season. See, a lot of people want to put him in that bottom half of the top 10 in the league. I don't understand that at all.
Me neither, but I can't wait. We're both obviously Chiefs and Bengals fans, so we're going to keep it locked. Anything we see, we're going to definitely be talking about it. So it'll be fun. I've enjoyed this rivalry, Craig. I don't know how much you've enjoyed it, but I have, and I think it's one of the best ones in sports.
Yeah, I hope it carries the season next year.
Yes, sir. But guys, that's all we got. We appreciate you tuning in to another episode of Underrated and Overlooked, streaming live on YouTube every single Tuesday at noon Eastern. Hope you guys enjoyed it. We'll see you guys soon.